Hello, this is Beth Green, otherwise known as Granny Rocks. And tonight I want to talk about something. If we think someone is hurting themselves or others, should we tell them, or even more than that, take some action, even if they feel hurt? So the last 3 shows we were talking about feeling guilty and how to clear our conscience. And those shows, by the way, were very popular, I'm happy to say. But now that we've cleared our conscience, we really have to take a look at whether or not we should say something to somebody if we think that they're hurting themselves or other people. But it's not so simple, is it? So as usual, I'm going to make what seems simple very complicated. But hopefully I'm going to make it clearer. But before we get on with our show, here's sweet baby James.
Yes, welcome to Granny Rocks Our World, otherwise known as GROW, where we get the opportunity to experience Granny's wit, wisdom, and uncommon sense. And I'm really looking forward to tonight's topic. Very close to home, I might say.
Thank you.
Yes, we air every Monday and Wednesday. And of course, to err is human, so please have mercy and be sympathetic. Every Monday and Wednesday at 6:30 p.m. Pacific time. So stay with us and keep coming back.
So first I want to acknowledge that Bob has said hi from Bob and Carol, and we have to say hi, Bob and Carol. And Helen says Helen is here, and that's wonderful. So hello, Helen. Well, I think a lot of people don't really want to explore this topic. But first, I want to tell you that our internet has been a nightmare. As some of you who watch Dreams of Peace know, we got knocked off the air. I've been calling the company. They're supposed to send somebody out on Wednesday before our next show, or maybe Tuesday. So if we get knocked off the air, it's not that we died. It's, So
the internet died.
Oh, did you say AM? Helen says PM. I think James meant not AM.
Oh.
So did you say AM, James?
I don't know, but PM is the right answer.
Right, meaning we are on the air every Monday and Wednesday at 6:30 p.m. Pacific time. Thank you, Helen. Thank you. And Elizabeth said hello, Beth and James. Hello, Elizabeth. So anyway, first of all, I don't know how long this show is going to take. It took me 3 shows to get through the guilty conscience. And maybe this is going to be another multi-dimensional program. I don't know. But we start out with something very simple. If we believe someone is hurting themselves, should we say something? Or shouldn't we say something? And the first thing that I am going to say about this is, how do we know that we're right?
Good point.
I mean, we have to start with that question, don't we? We have so many opinions and we have so many prejudices that we can look at a situation which is actually very healthy and good, but just different from the way we were taught or the way we've grown up or the way we are. And we think they're wrong and they're hurting themselves. And I'm going to give you an example of that. Not that you need one, but I'm going to give it to you anyway. Which is that over 50 years ago, I was in a relationship with a Black man, and my parents just threw a fit, and they were sure that I was doing something to hurt myself. Actually, what hurt me was them, because they cut me off. First they yelled at me, and then they tried to break us up, and then they cut me off and didn't speak to me for 8 years or 9 years or something anyway. So they were very, very opinionated, and they were wrong. But aren't we all at times very opinionated and very wrong? And there is Sherry saying, follow your heart and do what's right. Well, it's not always easy to know what's right, but that's a very good point, Sherry. That is really, how do we know? So we have to ask ourselves, is this just my opinion? Is this just the way I was raised? Because that's the way it was with my parents. They were just doing what they were raised to do. And, or is this my prejudice? Now, how do we actually believe, in what way is that person hurting themselves? We get to look deep into it. We're looking into ourselves in the process of looking at someone else. Like, what is it that they're doing that we think is so hurtful? Now, there's a lot of differences of opinion on things. Amy says, it's so easy to go by my opinions. That's for sure. I'm with you.
Yeah, I'm with you too.
So, okay, I think it's bad when people smoke pot every day or take drugs at all. But am I right? See, how do I find out? Am I willing to open my mind to look for evidence, to check with science, to really look at this? Or do I just want to jump in and spout my opinion? Okay. So then if I am thinking that I'm right, then what's my motive in speaking up?
Good question.
Yeah. Is my motive to be so self-righteous? Or am I trying to protect how I look? Like my mother and father, God bless them, they did a lot of good things, but I'm just using them tonight as an example. So they would say, well, what would the neighbors think? Right? So were they really worrying about me hurting myself or him? Or were they worried about them being embarrassed in the neighborhood as though that was the most important thing? Right? Yeah. So, I mean, literally, my mother used to say this all the time. What would the neighbors think? Or she would say, it just isn't done. So Todd said, hi there, Beth, and James, hi there, Todd. So what is my motive for speaking up? Is it because I'm trying to look important? Am I trying to run my daughter's life? Am I really caring about that person? Do I have the information that I need in order to determine whether or not this is hurtful? Am I trying to protect my standing in the neighborhood? Oh, and the man, the father, may feel that he has to establish how powerful he is. Sherry says, their image. You are so right, Sherry. Protect their image, which is their ass on their face. I didn't say that because there are people out there who might be offended by the use of that word, but it's just another word for donkey. Okay, now let's say the other person, so we've absolutely decided in the depth of ourselves that we are right about this. Now, we could approach the person in a kind of a humble way and say, it is my sense that you're doing this and that it is hurtful. For example, let us say that we know that our daughter is using drugs, and every day her children come home or drinking, and their mother is drunk on the couch. I think we have a pretty good idea that that is not a good situation for children. And REA said, hi, Beth and James. Hi, RE. So in this case, we're pretty darn sure that we are right about this. We got to do something, or we see that our daughter who is using drugs or alcohol, whatever it is ruining her health, ruining her marriage, not able to work. I mean, there's all kinds of things that, they get pretty obvious. This goes beyond just opinions, right? So the next question we asked ourselves is, are we really hurting the other person if we speak up? Because supposing I talk to her and she says, Mom, you're hurting my feelings. Or you tell your husband that you've discovered that he's gambling. And, you see it. You're looking at the credit card or the bank statement and it's disappearing. And you're thinking, oh, why? This was made out to the track. I wonder if... And so you go and you talk to him and he says, how could you think that of me? How could you even think that I would be gambling? That I'm not that kind of guy. Oh, yes, I just happened to find this ticket in your pocket when I was about to throw your pants in the washing machine, right? And you're hurting his feelings. So Tina says, hello, Granny Rocks and SBJ. Just tell me straight when I do something. It's the only way to fix it. You are so right. And let's see more. I may get hurt at first, but I will be forced to think about what you said and address the issue. Oh, you're so ahead of me. You're not even waiting for me to get to that point. I have learned tough love is usually for our own good. Right on, Tina. I am going to get to that because you are so right. But first we have to determine whether or not we are coming out of prejudice or it's really true what we're saying. And then we have to be willing to deliver the message, and we have to be willing to also listen to that message. But now when that other person says, you're hurting my feelings, right? Now I want to go back to what Tina said. You're hurting my feelings? Like I'm drinking myself to death and you're hurting my feelings? You know, I'm gambling away the family farm and you're hurting I'm beating the children and you say something to me, but you're hurting my feelings? You know, that is a tragedy that you hurt somebody's feelings. Well, maybe you're not really hurting their feelings. Maybe you're hurting their pride. Maybe you're hurting their ego, the part of them that wants to look good in the world, as Sherry was talking about, protecting their image, right? So is it really hurting them? And that's what Tina is talking about. Is it hurting them or is it really helping them? Are they going to squeal? Yes, they might. Now, sometimes they'll just be relieved. Oh, thank God somebody is addressing this with me. I have needed somebody to talk to me about this. Debbie says, hi, Beth and James. Getting ready for work. So glad I caught this first. Love you both. We love you too, Debbie. Hope you can stay as long as you can. If not, you can watch the replay. So, and Minika Van, okay, says right. I think many people have their shortcomings, and the ones that have them the most like to point out other shortcomings. That's very true. That is very true, and that's coming back to our ego. Are we pointing this out of ego? But if we really see someone who's hurting themselves, we have to get beyond that and take a chance to talk to them, because we might be saving their life. You know, we really have to look at our motives. We have to look at why we're doing it. Now, when somebody says you're hurting my feelings, so we have to ask, is it you that I'm hurting? Is it just your ego that I'm hurting? Is it just your pride? Or are we stopping your ego from hurting you? So let's say your ego says, I don't want to hear this. This is very insulting, you know. And it could be about, I mean, I've talked about addictions like that, but it could be that you're gossiping, or you're in a marriage where you're letting yourself be abused. There's so many ways in which we let ourselves be hurt, or we're so miserable that we're abusing our children. Somebody needs to, you know, wake us up, right? So is the ego, which tells us nobody can talk to me that way, is the ego hurting us? And is the person who speaks up stopping the ego from hurting us? Let's say we've got it in our heads that we have to become doctors, but we faint at the sight of blood, but we want to be doctors because my father was a doctor, or because I think it will pay well, or because I want the word doctor in front of my name, you know, or whatever it is. I'm going to make myself miserable. And if somebody sits down to me and says, honey, you know, I think you're really, you know, an artist, and I don't think that being a doctor is really for you. I mean, let's talk about it. That's just my thought about it. Well, maybe that person is trying to stop your ego from hurting you. So the first thing that we have to do, before I get to that, see, how can I put the first thing at the end? Well, it's the first of many things, but the other thing we have to ask ourselves is, what do we want to accomplish by speaking? What do we think we can accomplish? Again, are we just trying to vent? Are we trying to prove our superiority, as Minika is saying, to hide our own shortcomings? Or do we really have an intention to help that person in some way? Is that our motivation? Now, there's a lot of bad things going on in our world today. I'm sure you all are well aware of how incredibly hurtful people have become, or that they're letting themselves show it. And if we let people be hurtful and hateful towards one another, then we are allowing that hurt. And we are not stepping in to do something about something that is hurting a lot of people. But what can we accomplish, and what's the best way to do it? Is speaking to them the best way? Is speaking to someone in their family the best way? What is the best way? So I've given you some preliminary thoughts about even thinking about when you should speak. But let's say you have come to the conclusion that the time has come for you to say something. Sometimes you need to do more than say something. Sometimes you have to take an action. For example, if you see that someone is abusing a child physically or emotionally, and that child has no choice, no way to get out, you may have to call Child Protective Services. So sometimes, you could start by talking to the person, but if they are not going to move or budge, you may have to take action. And that's even more scary. Minika says, when someone is in an abusive relationship, it's always best to ask the person who is abused how we are best able to help. Very good point, because addressing it openly to the abuser can make things worse. Oh, yes. Oh, yes. It's a very, very good point. Sometimes we stick our fat faces into things and we don't realize what the other person is up against, but we can't let it go, because when we find out that that abused person is now in the hospital or has committed suicide, we're going to sit there and think, now, what was I thinking? What was I waiting for? So it's very good to bring the wisdom in, Minika, as well as the courage and the sense of responsibility. So let's say I feel like I'm right about something. I'm caring about the way I present it. I'm very careful about their safety issues. And supposing they tell me that I'm hurting them. I have to ask them, what is really hurting them? Me or the behaviors? If you are addicted to food or sex or spending money, should I say something even if it hurts your feelings? Is what's worse? To have you get angry at me or feel like I've hurt your feelings, or to have a friend now who's on your side really and says, how can I help you, as Minika says, in order to free yourself from the pattern of behavior that's hurting you? And Wade says hi, and hi, Wade. It looks like I'm going to have to do the second part of this on Wednesday. And the good news is we didn't get knocked off the air. But let me just say a few little things. We have to be extremely self-aware if we're going to intervene with someone. But we also have to have the courage, because if we do need to say something or take an action and we don't do it, we will never forgive ourselves. How many examples have we seen in the news where we discovered that a woman was chained up downstairs in the basement, or 13 children were held captive, and the neighbors thought that something might be wrong, but they didn't do anything? Donna said, hope this is. I'm not sure what you mean, Donna. Hope this is what? You probably made that comment earlier when I was saying something that I would have known, but now the comment just showed up and I don't know what you're referring to. So we have to take this responsibility very seriously. And I'm going to go into this further on Wednesday. But in the meantime, I have to remind us that it is not just individuals who hurt themselves, but it is societies that hurt themselves and others. And how many of us act like we don't know what's going on? It's too much for us. or we're too scared. Oh, on replay, I would love to see it all. Thank you, Donna. It'll be on replay because we did not get bumped off the internet. We have a responsibility to our world to say something when we know that we as humanity are hurting ourselves and others. So I know there's a lot more to say, but I think I'm supposed to stop now. Do you have something to say before we go? And come back on Wednesday, and I am going to complete this topic.
Well, the other thought that I might add is that also consider, what if it's you who has been hurtful toward yourself or others, and somebody feels the need to say something? Are you going to be defensive? You're going to take it in? You're going to work with it? That sort of thing. Or are you going to say, oh, that hurts my feelings, so I don't want to hear it? You know?
Exactly. If you take away only one thing from this show, take away this thought. Sometimes when someone thinks that you hurt their feelings, you've only hurt their ego and their ego's way of doing things, but that you have not hurt them. You've only threatened something in them. And I will continue this next time. So in the meantime, I want to remind you that Wednesday, we're back Wednesday, and I'm going to complete this, I believe. And on Thursday, we are going to broadcast Dreams of Peace. And by that time, we should not be getting knocked off the internet. I am going to play the piano for you. And Sweet Baby James, Elizabeth said, very good points, Beth. Thank you. And Sweet Baby James and I are going to complete this show. And we're going to complete every show by singing you one little part of a song that I wrote called
Love is What's Worth Fighting For.
Love is What's Worth Fighting For. And we're going to sing it a cappella. And Shakti said, thank you both. Thank you, Shakti. So we're going to end with Love is what's worth fighting for. Destinies unfolding. We are listening to our hearts. We will change the world from the inside out. And I think Sherry, I think it was Sherry, said, yes, about, follow your heart. And Helen said, what a great conversation about when to intervene. Love it. Great. And Tina said, thank you both for your wisdom. You both rock. Yes, so do you. Thank you for the incredible support that we are getting from our wonderful audience. Mwah. See you Wednesday.
God bless you.
Bye-bye.